Yo, 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 yo. What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads out there? This is Weedman420 with the Weedman420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Hopefully you're doing well. Mrs. Weedman, how you doing?
Doing well.
That's great. Hey, everyone. I just want to say across the world, please, please be kind to one another. Please love one another. There's so much craziness going on in this world. Good, bad, ugly, whatever you stand for. Just try to love one another. Smoke fat doinks. A lot of them. This world needs it right now. So I was in Oklahoma all week, and I have to say, your cannabis out there is great, and I don't care what anybody says, and your hospitality was amazing. Your dispensaries were a lot of product, and I came home with a bunch of stuff, and I'm smiling all the way to the basement session. And I just have to say, and I was talking to Mrs. Weedman a lot while I was over there. I was in Tulsa for a couple of days. I was in OKC for a couple of days, and a lot of dispensaries I visited, a lot of cool bud tenders, a lot of cool owners of the dispensaries, and a couple of them, I went to one that really, really kind of like was like wowed. And I'm going to throw them a plug because they were very kind to me, and they gave me some free stuff to try, and they gave me a shirt, which I love, and it's called Med Farm. And I love their logo with the little cow on it, with the pot leaf as the cannabis leaf as like on the butt area.
Like instead of a black mark on the cow, he has got a cannabis leaf.
Yeah,
it's cute.
She's cute. So I want to say about this dispensary. They had something I had never seen before, and it was a bakery in the dispensary, and a nurse practitioner, and she was making fresh baked goods, and they smelled fantastic. And she gave me a couple to try, and I'm saving them. I haven't tried them yet. I'm looking forward to it. Very well done, and I have never seen that before.
And you said they sell it like the bakery is there in the dispensary,
yes.
And then people can buy
full
fresh
kitchen,
cookies.
Full kitchen, pastries, cookies, cakes. It was
so cool,
so dope. I was so amazed by this dispensary. The other thing they had, which scared the shit out of me, and I didn't do it because it was just too much for me for that time of the day. They had a Slurpee machine, with 6 different flavored Slurpees, and the Slurpees were infused, and it was 50 milligrams per glass. I don't know how. I think it was 16 ounces or 12 ounces, and then you could pull some soft serve ice cream and put it in there.
Oh my gosh, that would be, what was that called at Dairy Queen? Mr. Misty Freeze.
Yes. And
ice cream and Slurpee.
If it was a 10 milligram dose, I would have done it all day long. But I was in the middle of just doing my thing, and I just didn't want to be a 50 milligram. I should have just tried it just to taste it, but I was like, I know. I did do the ice cream though.
Well, but that didn't have any cannabis.
I know.
You needed just a splash of Slurpee in there.
I know. I am so bummed I didn't try it. So
chicken.
Med Farm, I'm a chicken. I just had a lot going on that day, and I just didn't want to be comatose, I guess you could say. But I have to say this. I met another gentleman named Bruce. He was super cool. His shop was dope. They are just a cool shop. There were so many cool shops. So much edible selection. Some great concentrate selection. I mean, the selection. I mean, you go to any store, you're talking just like being in I don't know how to explain the store. I mean, when you go into a store that has a lot of supply of stuff, what kind of store would you call that? Not a convenience store. Bulk, but not just bulk, but like the variety. Man, it was
kind of
like
going to a spice shop where they got all the containers of spices, and then they package it whatever size you want.
They do their cannabis deli style there, which I absolutely positively love, where they keep them in big glass jars, and then they take the cannabis jar down that you choose, and they take them out with like some people were using chopsticks or whatever
it's
like that.
It's like a grown-up penny candy store.
Yes, there you go.
I want one Swedish fish, and I want one now and later.
And they're showing. I mean, they put it on the platter for you. You can look at it. Some people had magnifying glasses on the counters that you can really look at the terpenes and the trichomes and the color and how that bud was.
You can't physically touch it with your fingers, though. You just had to look at it.
Yeah, you can look at it.
Yeah.
So it was pretty amazing. I mean, just the pricing was incredible. I mean, and they just don't do 100 milligram edibles there per bag. There was 550 milligram bags, 1,000 milligram bags, 1,200 milligram bags of edibles.
So they're recreational and
no,
medical?
they're just medical.
Just medical?
Just medical.
Okay.
So, I mean, the concentrates, the flower looked great. The pricing was so affordable. Whatever you do in Oklahoma, don't stop and don't change your laws. You can also grow 5 or 6 plants out there and then have 5 in seedling. 5 in full bloom and then 5 like just right behind it.
Illinois, you can.
No.
Yeah, you could have 5
just
growing
5.
and then you can only have 5 over, I think, 12 inches.
Right.
So you could have your seedlings started
but it was
when
still
you're...
pretty amazing,
Right.
though. Like, and they were selling clones there. Like, the dispensaries were selling clones. Like, this one shop had, like, a tent full of all different clones, and they were cheap. They're only, like, $15-20.
Wow.
So, I mean, I every store I went into, I met a cool cultivator guy. He threw me some nugs, man, of his own stash, and it was just like the hospitality at Oklahoma show, Weedman 420, Mr. Weedman, was awesome. I'll never forget it. I'll probably go back there one day again and visit. And I want to say, keep on doing what you're doing in Oklahoma because it's pretty damn cool to see. You just need to go recreational now, which I think is probably going to happen in the next couple of years from what I heard. So your selection's amazing. I mean, your cannabis, we're going to smoke right now, right, Mrs. Weedman?
Yeah, we
Let's light this up. We're smoking a strain that I'd gotten while I was out there.
It's a nice fat
Yeah,
joint.
it's a fuller. The strain is called Snowball. It's an indica dominant hybrid, and the THC ranges from 23 to 30%. This one happens to be total cannabinoids is 25.8%. THC dose is 21.61, and 3. I like on the package they didn't tell you the terpenes on here, but they tell you at least what the percentage of terpenes, and this has 3.29% terpenes in here. So this is Snowball. It's a rare indica dominant hybrid created through crossing the classic the white and Chem 4 OG S1 strains. Named for its insanely gorgeous, sparkling appearance, Snowball buds have heavily oversized, fluffy, popcorn-shaped nugs with rich amber undertones, a spattering of thin orange hairs, and completely blanketed cover of glittering white crystal trichomes. As you break apart each dense little nugget, aromas of creamy fuel of sour, pungent chemicals are released, intensifying with a citrusy effect as they are burned away. The flavor is very similar with sour citrus overtones that accented by a creamy exhale packed full of savory diesel. The Snowball high isn't quite as bright as flavor, with relaxing effects that are best suited for night when sleep just won't seem to come. Whoa. Hopefully we don't fall asleep on the show. You'll feel a relaxing lift, the onset of the high that fills your mind with hazy happiness and a sense of well-being. As your mind floats away into peaceful bliss, your body will begin to settle into a building couch log, ending you being totally immovable and sedated before the final fade away into a deep and peaceful sleep.
This is going to be an interesting show. I hope we don't find ourselves snoring.
Well, I know after the show I'm smoking this when we go to bed. These heavy effects make Snowball perfect for treating experienced patients suffering from insomnia, chronic pain, cramps, and muscle spasms, and chronic fatigue. That's awesome. So the effects, body high, relaxing, sleepy, and a little bit uplifting, it says. Relief symptoms is chronic pain, cramps, fatigue, insomnia, muscle spasms. Flavors are citrus, creamy lemon, orange, sour, sweet. What'd you taste?
I taste piney.
Piney?
Citrusy, piney.
Okay. I know the main terpene in this is carotene.
Yeah.
So, but if you're tasting
It's
piney,
tasty.
you might have a little A pinene or B pinene in there too. So,
I took 3 hits thinking this was a sativa.
I told you it was an
I know
indica
you
before
did.
we started the
I
show.
know. But in my brain, I wasn't thinking that way. We'll see how this goes.
I don't know. We'll see. Tastes
Hopefully
good.
we're not
smoky,
stumbling
Wow.
and mumbling by the end. We'll
Mr.
see.
Weedman,
We'll
how was
see.
your week when Mr. Weedman was gone enjoying himself with all these dispensaries and gifts that he got?
It was good. It was quiet. It was a quiet week, which I won't argue with. A lot of times I don't have quiet weeks, so I took it with strides.
There you go.
We had grandma weed.
Oh, we had
Come visit
grandma
us.
weed
Weed-
woman and
weed grandma?
Yeah, weed grandma.
Is
Grandma
that it?
weed. We'll just call it grandma weed.
Grandma
was in
weed?
town.
She
It
came
was
to
great to
visit.
see. It was great to
That
see
was
my
fun.
mom. She was in town. We love you, Grandma Weed. So I got to see her for a couple days because I got back later in the week. But so let's get started here with the show. That tasted really good.
Yeah.
It's burning
You're
a
just
little
going to let it burn?
it'll go out. I might take one more hit before we start.
Oh, watch out, people.
Let's just do one more. See how
You're
it goes.
crazy. Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's
I'm
how
not-
I roll.
I'm not doing
Will you
that.
just put it out?
Sure.
Thank you. Wow. That was a
Why?
big one. We'll see how this show goes. Nearly half a century later, cannabis martyr sees hopes in Virginia. In March 1974, Roger Trenton Davis was sentenced to 40 years in prison for 9 ounces of cannabis, an unusually harsh punishment that would make him nationally known as as it says here, marijuana martyr. Should say cannabis martyr, but marijuana martyr, spelled with an IJUANA. So today, possession of small amounts of cannabis is legal in Virginia. Davis is a free man, and the Southwest Virginia native, now 75, is making the best of both things. That martyr, that's who I am, Davis said in an interview Thursday. I believe that every person on the face of the earth should be allowed to enjoy God's herb. I'll say it one more time. God's herb. Davis spent hard time in prison for possessing an amount of cannabis that, under laws that took effect July 1st, in most circumstances would be punishable by no more than $25 fine now. He hopes to use his story, which began in the 70s when he was portrayed by the Rolling Stone, High Times, and Playboy magazine as a martyr for his cause, to help spread the word. It's knowledge that I can pass along to everybody else, he said. The governor of Virginia, for one, is listening. Davis was invited to Richmond earlier this year to witness Governor Ralph Northam sign a bill that made it legal for adults to possess an ounce of less of cannabis. For an amount of up to £1, the penalty was reduced to a civil fine of $25. Roger Trenton Davis is one of many individuals whose life was upended by the disproportionate enforcement of cannabis laws, and we felt it was important to have an opportunity to join us, and we put him on this, put a stop to it. Yarmosky wrote in an email. In the first public interview since the law was passed, Davis wore a "Free the Weed" T-shirt, and his hair was pulled black, long gray dreadlocks. He was quick to smile when talking about the experiences under the old law, and just as quick to point out the problems with the new one. Nice. More needs to be done, he said. For example, a portion of the law that allows home cultivation of up to 4 cannabis plants does not apply to residents of public housing complexes and subsidized housing, which falls under the federal regulation that still forbid cannabis. A disproportionate number of those residents are black and will remain disenfranchised, he said. Black people have the opportunity, he said. It should be equal and equitable for everyone. And if it's not, what do I say to that? Get your knee off my neck? Give us the same opportunity to come up. Hell, we're 400 years behind. The legalization of cannabis is like a Silicon Valley or Apple computer or a brand new stock or a brand new economic avenue. Well, you can't close the doors on black people. We suffered for too long and too hard to be told no on something that God gives us. I've been saying that for a long time. I like this gentleman. The wrong place at the wrong time. He was, when he got arrested for cannabis, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And 9 ounces, I mean, today is just like nothing. And to do 40 years for 9 ounces.
40 years?
Yeah. That's what he was. Yeah.
Jeez.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Just for possession.
Just for possession
Personal
of 9 ounces.
possession.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
but still. 40 years.
yeah, 40 years. So basically, he was broke, as shit, and he needed some money. Hey, this poor man didn't need to do 40 years for 9 ounces, but he's free, and that's great. So, Mr. Davis, keep on fighting the good fight in Virginia, being a part of the change in the cannabis community, and hopefully we get to meet someday and smoke a big fat doink. New research labels THCA as novel therapy for drug-resistant cancer. We've talked about cannabinoids. This is just another cannabinoid. And so THCA, or tetrahydrocannabinolic acid, is a relatively unknown compound found in cannabis plant. Research on the cannabinoid is quite promising, despite the fact that it's still mostly uncharted territory. However, one of the most hopeful studies to date is a new one from Israel that suggests THCA could be beneficial in the treatment of drug-resistant tumors. What is THCA? Everyone heard of THC, but most people don't know about the precursor compound, THCA, which is found only in raw cannabis plants. As the buds dry, cure, and wean heat is applied, THCA eventually turns into THC. This process, when THCA loses its carboxyl acid group, is known as decarboxylation. Sorry, I'm pretty baked. Contrary to popular belief, just call it decarbing. THC actually isn't found in fresh flowers. If you've ever bought cannabis from a dispensary that sends their bud out for lab testing, you may notice that somewhere in the package it will have the THC content listed. It's labeled this way because presumably the consumer is going to smoke, vape, or otherwise heat the product in some way. However, it would be more accurate to label it as THC with a lowercase a content since the flowers are raw when purchased. For many years, the acid compound has been largely ignored, and the central focus was on THC and finding ways to vilify it. Thankfully, now we're starting to make great strides in the ways cannabis research and medical researchers are starting to look at the unique benefits of multiple cannabinoids, including THCA. Unlike its decarb counterpart, THCA is non-psychoactive, although very relaxing, and it does have numerous medical benefits. THCA can help with pain, inflammation, neurological disorders like epilepsy. It has been found to contain neuroprotective qualities and can be a helpful compound in treatment of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis. Also, in addition to the research covering in the particular article, previous studies have suggested that THCA has some level of anti-cancer properties. That's pretty good. Cancer statistics. In the United States alone, an estimated 1,806,590 new cases of cancer will be diagnosed in the coming year. And out of those, 606,520 will die from the disease or related complication. The most common cancer in descending order are breast, lung, prostate, colon, melanoma, bladder, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, kidney, renal, endometrial, leukemia, pancreatic, thyroid, and liver cancer. In women, the most commonly diagnosed cancers are breast, lung, colorectal, while for men, the most common are prostate, lung, and colorectal. These 4 different types of cancers account for roughly 50% of all new cases. That's crazy. And you want to know what? I'm really baked, and I got all those words right.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good.
I'm busy over here watching the veins in my hands move.
I'm pretty stoned.
I'm a little stoned.
I'm baked.
I realized, like when I was a kid, we were just talking about this today. I was talking with my sisters, and I remember my mom's hands, like when I was a kid going to church, and she'd have her hand on the pew in front of us, and the veins in her hands would stick out. And then when she would do something with her hand, the veins would jump across the bones in her hand. I realized today that I can do the same. So I'm pretty impressed with myself right now. I'm making one vein move around. The things you do when you smoke.
Thanks for talking for a minute.
Yeah,
Gave me a chance to get back in my head.
You got your head back?
I did.
That's good.
I know.
It's always good to get your head back.
I know. I was fading
You
fast
good?
for a second. I'm good.
Wake up.
I got it.
Okay.
I'm not falling asleep on y'all. Approximately 40% of the... But you notice how my voice is slowed down?
Yeah, you got to pick it up.
Sorry, y'all.
We don't want to put everyone to sleep.
No. Approximately 40% of American adults will be diagnosed with cancer at some point during their lives, and an estimated 16,850 children and adolescents between the ages of 0 to 19 will receive a diagnosis. That's wow. The cost of national cancer-related expenditures is around 160 billion. These numbers are estimated to increase over the coming decades as a result of the aging population, exposure to environmental and dietary carcinogens. Wow. I didn't even realize those numbers. That's nuts. Multiple drug resistance. Although the number of available cancer treatments is growing, long-term survival rates for patients undergoing traditional chemotherapy remain suboptimal. A major factor impacting the effectiveness of chemotherapy is the development and resistance to a variety of anti-cancer drugs. This is referred to as multiple drug resistance, MDR, and occurs in over 50% of cancer patients who experience a reoccurrence. Reoccurrence coupled with MDR greatly increases the risk of mortality. See, I'm reading all this for everyone just because I learned this and I didn't know any of this. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know about cancer, but I didn't know some of these statistics lately. According to the study, the dominant mechanism behind multi-drug resistance involves active intrusion of the cytotoxic drugs from the tumor cells by dedicated efflux pump proteins that reduces the intercellular levels of cytotoxic drug below lethal thresholds. Wow. Blocking the flow of chemotherapy. So, it says here, simply put, MDR occurs, I should have just read this part, via increased release of drugs, chemotherapy drugs in that case, outside the cells, so drug absorption is reduced within the cells. There are many different mechanisms at play here, but the main point is that MDR is responsible for over 90% of the deaths in cancer patients on chemotherapy drugs, and a solution to the problem is the utmost importance. we've had a lot of family that have cancer, and we've talked about the chemotherapy and the radiation. And I'm not a doctor, but everything I've always read about chemotherapy or radiation, you're just basically putting poison in your body, right?
Yes, you are.
And it takes, 6 months
But it effectively kills a greater poison.
right? But it also kills everything else.
Hopefully.
But it also kills everything else in
kills
your
good
body.
stuff too.
Right. So it doesn't take like your body 6 months to a year once you get off chemo and radiation to heal itself from that.
Yeah, I don't know timelines, but yeah, it takes a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, oh man.
And maybe there's a lot of people who don't even go through like a holistic process of trying to like help that process along.
Right.
Some people will do alternative medicines to kind of speed that process up, right? Like detox, that kind of thing. But some people don't, so maybe it can take even longer.
So about the study, according to the study, which was completely by Can Therapeutics in Israel, the THCA class of cannabinoids has potential as an MDR pump inhibitor, one that's non-toxic, one non-psychoactive, and free of dangerous side effects. Research on the subject is limited, but a particular study is very informative with incredibly promising results. The first test was conducted on human ovarian resistance cells. That's interesting. Let's see here. Main takeaway: THCA for drug-resistant cancer. THC alone doesn't kill cancer, at least not according to this study. It does, however, help traditional chemotherapy and other cancer immune therapy treatments work more efficiently by bypassing the existing multi-drug resistant that is common in roughly half of all cancer patients. A combination of standard cancer therapies along with THCA could allow doctors to give much smaller doses of chemotherapy drugs to the patient, minimizing the risk of dangerous side effects and making survival much more likely. So that's good. Do your research. I'm not a doctor. I'm just looking for information to help everybody. Here's something that I've been reading a lot about, and we've talked about this on the show, and I just always read about this, and I think I found something finally that may be a reason. So cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, CHS, is actually what they're saying in this article, azadrichin, AZADIRACHTIN. They're saying it possibly could be neem poisoning. So everybody that's been getting sick and puking on cannabis, they're thinking they're having a weird effect to cannabis.
It could be from pesticides.
Yes, some people,
even natural pesticides.
Some things I've read, some people thinking it's a political stunt. Some people are saying that it's actually happening. It's reoccurring more and more lately, and there's been more and more articles I've been seeing and more news about it that I've been reading about. So I finally found one that might be the reason. So this was an article from 3 years ago, okay? Mm-hmm. So azadrichin, I can't pronounce it, sorry, is the active compound in the oil from the neem plant. Farmers have been wheeling neem oil against fungal and insect pests for centuries. When done properly, very little azadrichin ends up in the food because most plants can't take it through the roots. Cannabis is one of the best phytotoromediators known. When growing in contaminated soil, it cleans the soil by uptaking heavy metals and other toxins. So it does uptake azadrichin, especially during vegetative states. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick, everybody, because I am fucking cottonmouth. Okay. Then deposits in the resins into the flowers, which may be dried for smoking or made into concentrates. Many, even organic growers, don't know this and continue to use neem oil with cannabis. I'm not saying everybody. This is just what I've been reading on this article from 3 years ago. Yes, it's organic, but organic doesn't mean safe. Azadrichin is definitely poisonous. As much as half of all cannabis, including its dispensaries, is contaminated to some degree with that word, azadrichin.
Call it Aza.
Yeah, I'll call it Aza. What Aza does to humans. The early symptoms of Aza toxicity are intense nausea, cyclic vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, muscle tension, fatigue, and dehydration. Symptoms can be reduced with Benadryl or a hot shower or a bath. Those who are particularly sensitive to ASA, those who are otherwise weakened or immune compromised, and those who get the highest doses get the sickest. If levels get high enough, stupor, seizures, and organ damage results.
Whoa.
When the patient abstains from cannabis or switches to a clean source grown without ASA, symptoms gradually clear up.
So it's not chronic.
Right.
That's good.
Yes.
So then maybe if you recognize that you're having that reaction, you just don't smoke that strain or that batch.
Maybe.
Right.
Grow your own.
Yeah.
Anyway, along came CHS. Since 2004, various sources have been claiming that heavy cannabis use sometimes causes cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. The never-before-seen illness supposedly has all the same symptoms of ASA toxicity and clears up when treated in the same ways. As far as I can tell, CHS doesn't exist. It's actually toxicity to the active compound in neem oil used sporadically on cannabis in the legal and underground industries. This nonsensical syndrome is being made into boogeyman by politicians to justify the continued prohibition of cannabis. We can dispel the CHS myth and prevent people from getting sick by spreading the word. Never use neem oil, ASA, on cannabis. So I'm a home grower, and I'm on a lot of different groups, growing groups all over the social media, and I see people. I don't comment because I haven't been growing long enough to give people my suggestion yet. So I read and what people say, and I go over it in my head to see if I know something, or I look it up to see what they're asking for. And I so want to help, but I'm just not quite confident enough yet in helping people. But I do see people saying use neem oil when you see pest. And I have not used neem oil on my plants. I haven't had a bug problem. So, but I did have, for the first time, a couple of gnats I've seen in the tent, and we used Dr. Bronner's and
Diluted.
Yeah, a lot. So, and does it work? I don't know. But I don't use it enough anyway. So, on my outside plant, I have been at least once a week, and then a little bit in the soil, on the top of the layer of the soil. So I don't know if that's damaging or not, even with the Dr. Bronner's. It says it's not, what I've read. But all I'm saying is I see a lot of people using neem oil on the home grower side of things. So I'm not an expert. This is just something I've been reading so much on, and I wanted to kind of get to the root cause of this. This I found on Steemit, and the writer is D. Rutter. This was something great for me because I've been wanting to understand what this was all about, why people were getting sick. So this was an article way back 3 years ago. So just be careful out there what you're using on your plants. If I like I said, I can't speak for what growers are doing. All I can know is what I do and how I grow my own medicine. And, sometimes I get stuff from other people. So I don't know, just be careful if you have that syndrome. It could not be from the cannabis. So just something to think about, everybody. Predictions. Do we like predictions?
I will get out my crystal ball and give you some predictions.
Good.
Would you like some predictions?
I would love it.
You would?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've got 3 predictions for cannabis and hemp in 2021. So we talk a lot about what's coming up and what's new. So this article talks about these 3 possible things that are happening. The first one is that hemp will diversify. I totally agree with that. The hemp business is set to continue tremendous growth. While hemp-derived products like CBD gummies and oils are currently all the rage, there will likely be new uses for the fibrous portion of the plant, such as biodegradable plastic alternatives, textiles, paper products, and more. As we look to the future, the usage of hemp will continue to be far more mainstream than ever before, and we'll likely even see it expand into insulation and geotextiles and building materials. I actually watched a show, and they were building like green building, like off the grid green building. I was watching with you. And it was lime hemp. It was almost like building adobe. They made like a mud compound.
It was a process.
Yeah, with hemp, and it was all natural materials.
Hemp can save the planet.
Yeah. And it dried hard like a brick. Pretty cool. So there was this one particular architect that was like a master in this hemp product. Anyway,
Crazy.
so pretty cool. So I agree with this. To prepare for the anticipated new wave, hemp farmers and cultivators should put themselves in the customer's shoes, asking what products could be created based on customer needs and wants. This is a young industry, so it's essential to know where and who everything comes from. Farmers and cultivators should give themselves time to learn, allowing room for failures here and there. It will be crucial to be extra conscious of the genealogy of seeds, asking questions, analyzing lab reports, and being diligent. The higher quality seed a cultivator can start with, the more likely it'll produce higher quality plants. Second prediction is that more millennials and Gen Zers will become customers.
I've been seeing this a lot. A lot of people talking about this, especially Gen Z
Gen Z
women.
is bigger than the
But
boomers.
Gen Z women.
Yeah.
You said boomers.
The baby boomers.
I know. It's a joke.
Oh, great.
But you're saying Gen Z women
Yeah.
are going to be the biggest.
Over the last year, our data strongly suggests that sales from every single age group, from baby boomers to Gen Z, are growing. That said, the two fastest growing age groups year over year are millennials and Gen Z. These generations have grown up in an era in which the stigmas surrounding cannabis have been lower for most of their lives. So the mental barriers that they have to overcome to become consumers are much lower in comparison to baby boomers and Gen Xers. That's logical. The trends in sales growth across all segments will almost certainly continue over the next year. But while it's now legal to use cannabis recreationally in several states, the subject of where consumers can consume and indulge is still open-ended. As the industry continues to grow with millennials and Gen Z, the cannabis continues breaking into the mainstream scene, we're sure to see more and more social spaces that will allow cannabis consumption. This trend will explode over the coming months and years with increased numbers of dedicated spaces for cannabis consumption, with cannabis bars and lounges opening their doors to customers. Beyond that, the cannabis industry is attracting all sorts of investors and entrepreneurs, including a growing number of public figures like actors, musicians, influencers, and sports stars. With high-profile hip-hop stars like Snoop, Ice Cube, Method Man all launching cannabis companies, actor Seth Rogen recently launching Houseplant, and former NBA All-Star Chris Webber starting a cannabis social equity fund, the writing is on the wall. But one thing we haven't yet seen, and we are likely to begin seeing, is cannabis brands sponsoring these types of public figures in the same way they currently get sponsored by Nike, Gatorade, and other major corporations. The legalities of these sponsorships now remain a deterrent, even in states where cannabis is legal. Still, with President Biden voicing his support for federal decriminalization of cannabis, that could all change. And our third prediction is that there will be big changes in consumer behavior. The way that Americans consume cannabis will see a seismic shift in the coming year. The consumption of low-dose products will become more popular, especially in environments where consumers face triggers for stress and anxiety, like airports. As the cannabis industry has matured, cannabis products such as edibles and oils have been required to carefully measure and label the amount of THC contained within for customer awareness and safety. This regulated accuracy has allowed customers to control their own levels of THC and CBD diligently. While the minimal effect dose for each patient will vary, it can be as low as 2 to 5 milligrams per day, resulting in a microdose effect. As consumers are increasingly looking for remedies outside of traditional pharmaceuticals, mainstream medical practices are beginning to recommend cannabis for various ailments and conditions. These include elevated mood, relaxed anxiety, stress, or better sleep and focus. Consuming small doses of cannabis will become more accepted and, in some cases, the norm. As the cannabis industry grows, it will continue to adapt and shift to an ever-changing landscape of regulatory hurdles and policies. Adapting doesn't always mean negative, though, and we'll likely see cannabis in brand new spaces and brand new ways in the coming years. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I think that's the biggest thing, is like a public social setting where cannabis is allowed.
Right.
like smoke rooms or like we have cigar bars. Why can't there be a little smoke?
The
bars,
crazy thing, Gen
cafes?
Zers will never not know that cannabis was. I mean, they'll know the history of it, but like in some states, cannabis has been around, like legal, like California, like medical since '96 and legal. I mean, some of these states.
What's the youngest Gen Xer?
Youngest Gen Xer?
Yeah,
I think it was like 80 something, 80, 71 to 83.
the youngest.
Oh, I don't know.
Like right now would be like 16 or 17.
Oh, you're talking about Gen Z.
You're really high.
You're talking about Gen Z.
Oh, we're Gen X.
Yeah, we're Gen X. So we probably
Gen Z.
Yeah,
What's
Gen
the
Z
youngest
is
Gen
probably
Z?
15, maybe 16. Yeah.
So they've seen it be illegal,
Some.
and they've seen stigma, but they don't. They're not preconditioned with the
Right, like we were.
Yeah.
Drugs are bad, McKay.
Right.
So
right.
I think it's kind of cool that Gen Zers are going to be like that's their wave. You know, their whole history now is going to cannabis is in their lives once it goes, totally legal. I mean, it's the next generation after that. It's going to never not know weed as being legal.
Right.
So, something to think about, all you out there. Illinois sells record number of cannabis products in June. Record number of they sold.
This weed is
Pretty stoned. Sold 2,513,676. The most yet. Over 2.5 million products sold. But they were down in sales a little bit. 79,190,74. That was in state. Out of state was 36,384,666.58. So 115 million, almost 0.6 sold in total sales. So another $100 million month. And some of the money's actually being used good. I just read that $3.4 million is going to help combat crime, or not crime, but like safety and stuff like that, which I thought was cool, keeping people safe. So, so they're using the tax money. And then, holy shit, lottery for Illinois cannabis retail stores begins in July 29th. July 29th drawing for 55 licenses will be held for applicants who previously received 85% of total of 250 points of the state's assessment. August 5th drawing also for 55 licenses is set up for social equity applicants that have been impacted by the war on drugs, past arrests for cannabis-related offenses, as well scored 85%. August 19th comes the originally planned lottery for 75 licenses that were expected to be issued in 2020. However, the awarding of those licenses was delayed by litigation and complaints over the state's scoring system. The three drawings will be managed by Illinois Lottery with random computer processing deciding the winners. Computer processes. This is all right. Good for you, Illinois. You're finally getting all this shit. But I'm going to say something. In Oklahoma, it's only $2,500 to get a dispensary license. There's going to be 2,000 dispensaries in Oklahoma. That's Oklahoma. Population's only a few mil. Illinois has, just in Chicago Chicago suburbs is 12 million people.
Whoa.
And we only have 104 dispensaries in Illinois, and they charge $60,000 just for the licensing fee, and you don't get that back. In Oklahoma, it's $2,500 for a license for a dispensary. And
are they
and there was stores that the guy owned a liquor store first, and he did it in half: liquor on one side, cannabis dispensary on the other.
Wow.
Banging.
Shit.
I saw 4 stores like that. Banging. And Illinois is just finally getting 55 to 105 more licenses out. I mean, come on. $2,500.
Wow.
Everybody should be able to open up a friggin' dispensary in Illinois. Every township should allow it. It was amazing. If you didn't like this one store, right across the street was another. I shouldn't have to drive 45 minutes to a dispensary that has carrying product that I need.
Right.
Every store had product.
So apparently their medical card holders can shop anywhere. You don't
have to well, now in Illinois you can do that finally. But that still sucks.
But in Oklahoma,
you can go anywhere you want.
Pretty cool.
Anywhere. It was banging. Illinois, you should be ashamed. Ashamed at what I saw out there. I learned so much that is so messed up about Illinois. Anyway, Good for you, whoever gets those lotteries chosen by a computer. Whatever. Just grow your own. So Senator Cory Booker, Senator Ron Wyden, and Senator Chuck Schumer came up with the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act. It's been all over the news. But Biden's not for it. So what does it matter? But here, I'm going to read a couple of the things. Removal from Controlled Substances Act. Transfer of federal agency function. They're going to send it to the Food and Drug Administration and then the alcohol ATB, and it's going to just, oh my God, it's going to be so regulated. Evaluate societal impact of legalization of states. Okay. Opportunity Trust Fund programs and small businesses administrative programs. Okay. Imposition of tax on cannabis products. Now this is the one I wanted to get to. This was like Section 5901 of the Internal Revenue Code is added by Section 401 of discussion draft would impose an excise tax on cannabis products in a manner similar to the tax imposed on alcohol and tobacco. The general rate of tax would be 10% for the year of enactment and the first full calendar year after enactment. The tax rate would increase annually to 15%, 20%, and 25% in the following years. So on top of the state taxes that some of you are getting robbed, there's going to be 25%, up to 25% tax eventually coming from federal taxes.
Jeez.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness. I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm just disgusted. General provisions regarding agency jurisdiction. Oh, there was a bonus proposal. The act would also change the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Cannabis, Firearms, and Explosives, and change the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau to Alcohol, Tobacco, Cannabis Tax and Trade Bureau.
Jeez. Well, if they make it legal, they've got to have some benefit in doing so.
Oh, my God.
Right?
FBI loosens cannabis employment policy for would-be agents. You know why? You know what that means. It's if the FBI is going to loosen it up a little bit because they can't get anybody to come on, it's going to go federally legal eventually because they're federal employees. So, think about that, folks out there. State of South Dakota doubles down on sovereignty issues, will not honor tribal medical cannabis cards. I mean, didn't they ballot it for both? Why are we still talking about it? Good job, Jersey. 88,000 cannabis cases vacated or dismissed this month following decriminalization implementation. Jersey, the place I was born. 88,000 people getting out of prison. First ever Ohio legal cannabis bill being filed. They're going to try to get that to go full recreational. Because there's 73 more licenses about to be given out for med. Yeah, It's coming. Good for you, Ohio. Columbus, thanks. Love you out there. What's some tips, tricks, chains, and whips you can give out to the medical cannabis patients, Mrs. Weedman?
Well, I'm going to give tips and tricks and all of those things for new medical patients. So we have to remember there's a lot of people that this is all really new to, and there's a lot of people that are just trying to understand what cannabis is, whether it's for medical or recreational purposes, right? A lot of people are intimidated about going into a dispensary. A lot of people are scared about having a bad response to cannabis. So these little bits of information, I think, are just valuable to keep sharing. Even if maybe it seems a little redundant for those of us that are more experienced, it's equally important. So after some thorough discussion and debate, many states are now recognizing the viability of medical cannabis to help treat and alleviate the symptoms of several health problems. Of course, this isn't to say the use of medical cannabis is absolute. There are metrics that have to be observed, such as limits in terms of dosage, sources, and the supervision of a healthcare professional. I don't think I need supervision of a healthcare professional. You need your nurse next to you while you smoke a joint. Once you've been given a prescription by a qualified doctor, you have to be cautious about all of your decisions and choices related to using medical cannabis. This sounds like a doctor wrote this article because it sounds like they're going to give you hand holding.
Yeah.
Like, so
Bear with
my
us.
takeaway, bear with us. There's some of this that's maybe a little too black and white. There's some gray area here that we can talk about.
Give us the gray.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Anyway, back to the article. You must make sure that the medical cannabis you use will complement, this is important, that it will complement other medications and will not alter their effectiveness. So in that situation, yes, if you have medical conditions that require medications and you are able to have the conversation about introducing medical cannabis into your repertoire of medicines, I think that your doctor does need to know, because especially if you're taking a heart medication or diabetes medication.
They do that with any medication.
You just don't
Gotta
want
be careful taking
you don't want
this.
interactions that are going to hurt you.
Like, what's the one thing you can't take?
You can't eat grapefruit
Oh, yeah.
when you take certain medications.
Right.
Anyway, so for that purpose, yes, definitely talk to your doctor. With that in mind, here's a handy guide for first-time medical cannabis patients so you can stay safe and as healthy as possible when using it. Prepare for a lot of research. While there are different kinds of medical cannabis products being sold in dispensaries today, know that they are not made equally. There are some better
That's
than
for
other
sure.
products, performance-wise and quality-wise. Because your intended usage of cannabis is for medical purposes, it's fitting for you to focus on products and manufacturers that are reputable and well known in the medical field for their top quality. There are ways that you can do research apart from talking to your doctor for advice. There are online resources. The internet is an information superhighway, so take advantage of the availability of resources that you can find online. Just be sure you're reading from credible sources. The internet can give you insight into the reputation of certain brands and manufacturers, so before you head out to a dispensary, you may already have an idea of what brands you should look for. Talk to other medical cannabis patients. If you personally know anyone else who's a medical patient, ask for their advice as to what brands and types of products to trust. Know the conditions that are approved for medical cannabis. Medical cannabis is not absolute. This means that there's only a few illnesses or conditions that your state may have approved for medical use. So if your illness isn't on the list, then you most likely won't be given a prescription or clearance by your doctor to use cannabis. Some of the most common conditions that are approved for medical cannabis use are cancer, eating disorders, chronic pain, post-traumatic stress disorder, epilepsy, arthritis, HIV and AIDS, glaucoma, multiple sclerosis, and hepatitis C. With this list, however, remember that approved conditions can differ from one state to another, so be sure to check with your local medical authorities. How about learning what to do when you go to a dispensary? Because your intended usage of cannabis is for medical purposes, you're going to need a prescription before you can be given certain products from a dispensary. But you don't have to be so anxious going for your first visit. Most people working in dispensaries are very chill, and they'll be more than willing to help you out with your medical concern. You also don't have to stick wow, to just one dispensary. You can start with the one that's closest to you, and if the products aren't there that you're looking for, you can change your dispensary. How about knowing that there are different types of products available? When your doctor gives you clearance for medical cannabis, it's not all the time that they're going to specify the kind of product you should use. In many instances, they may specify only the potency or the amount of CBD that should be in every cannabis product you're going to purchase. Your bud tender or staff curator at the dispensary you're buying from will gladly help to ensure this accuracy. But you're going to have to be prepared to come face-to-face with numerous options of medical cannabis products to choose from. These products all have their pros and cons, so it's up to you to choose according to your preferred type and what you're most comfortable with. There's going to be edibles. They are popular among many patients because they're easy to consume, especially for those who have an aversion to capsules or gels, or because they're already taking too many in a day. Cannabis edibles are easier to digest. These can be incorporated or mixed with drinks, or they can be the key ingredient when cooking food. You could use cannabis topicals. They're great for patients who need a more localized effect or feel from their medical cannabis. Typically, these are for patients using medical cannabis to alleviate chronic pain. It's best to do a patch test with topicals first to make sure that your skin is not going to have an adverse reaction to it. And then you have THC vapes. And vaping cannabis, even for medical cannabis use is getting popular because of its ease of use. So, just, with so many more patients being satisfied with the benefits of medical cannabis, it's not surprising that there's increasing approval for its use in many places. If you've been given that clearance by your doctor, the next thing to do is procure a safe and quality medical cannabis product and administer it in the proper and correct dosage. So be mindful of these tips. Your physician who cleared you for medical cannabis is always your best source for all health-related questions and concerns. If you're feeling uncomfortable with the medical cannabis type or method used, then make sure to talk with your doctor and really just explore. Get familiar. There's so many different types of edibles out there. There's so many different types of ingestion ways and topicals that really, I think it's just trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. International news. Kenya softens stance on cannabis after Rwanda legalization. I have to give a shout out to Kenya on that one. We're like top 70 podcast in Kenya. It's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Kenya. But in July 2021, Rwanda became the first country in East Africa to legalize the medical use of cannabis. The country inched closer to mass production and export of the multi-billion-dollar cash crop. Good for them, too. Man, taking it home. Kenya, get it done. Follow, baby. Medical cannabis grown in Germany available for the first time. That was crazy because Germany was one of the it is the biggest importer of cannabis from all over the world. Canada was like a big proponent. Now they're starting to grow their own. Home grow, baby. Legalization bill introduced in Belize. That's pretty cool. Belize is supposed to be beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to go there. They introduced an adult use legalization measure. Belize's current cannabis law was originally enacted in 2017 and was born out of the reform measure that amended the previous law to decriminalization possession of up to 10 grams of cannabis. Consuming cannabis in privacy of one's home is currently legal in Belize. Good for you. However, there's no legal adult use industry. That may be changing. So, pretty good Belize. You need to go there and check it out. We love edibles. I do love them. I'm a flower power guy, but flower first, edible second for Mr. Weedman. Mrs. Weedman makes a really good edible. I buy some really good edibles. I had my first trifecta edible from Oklahoma.
It was tasty.
It had THC, CBG, and CBD.
10 milligram.
It was like, but there was like 10 milligrams of THC, 15 milligrams of CBG, and 14 milligrams of CBD, and I was feeling pretty good.
Mm-hmm. You're like, I think that was 100 milligrams.
I thought it was at first.
Uh-oh.
But I was feeling great. So, and then I saw a quad, THC, CBG, CBD, and CBN edible.
Did we get any of those?
I didn't get any of those. I know.
Next time. I
got to make another trip out there. But that was pretty awesome to see 4 cannabinoids in one edible. So, but the trifecta, which is I always bet on the ponies. I always bet a trifecta. was
go big or go home.
Was legit.
Yeah.
So, I think we use them too to sleep, right?
Yeah, we do.
Well, tell us about it.
I think I've semi-mastered my homemade edibles and taking a little bit, maybe hour and a half before sleeping.
Been doing that for a while now.
Yeah, they don't quite kick in. Take one hit off of a joint and then go to bed. And
you take more than one hit.
And then the rest of the edible.
Are you kidding?
Well, it depends if I ate half of an edible or
You
not.
have not taken one hit of a joint and since you first started.
Uh-oh.
You're up to 4 now. You're up to 4 bowl rips. And when we smoke a joint, we polish a half. We polish.
Not that anybody's noticing.
I'm just saying though. You're saying one hit is just
okay. But if I have eaten half of an edible,
it doesn't matter. You're still doing 4 hits now.
He's calling me out. Whatever. Okay. So anyway, half of an edible, maybe an hour before bed, and then the other half right before I put my head down. And then it carries you through the night. You still wake up super clear-minded.
There you go.
No problem with the alarm. Mr. Weedman. Get out of here. I'm going to talk to you people about edibles and sleep because Mr. Weedman's just giving me a hard time. Edibles might seem like the right replacement for a nightcap or even a prescription medication for inducing sleep, but it helps to know what you're getting into first. Here's the real deal on ingestible cannabis for sleep. Been having trouble falling and staying asleep this past year and a half? You're not alone. A UK-based study reported that the number of people experiencing insomnia rose from 1 in 6 in 2018 to 1 in 4 in 2020. The Sleep Foundation even coined a term for it, coronasomnia, to describe the sleep-related problems that have stemmed from pandemic stress. And while grogginess, fatigue, and under-eye bags are some of the more prominent symptoms stemming from a poor night's sleep, continual sleep problems can have major negative effects on your overall health. Consistent poor sleep can increase your risk for cardiovascular issues, weight gain, and depression, as well as deplete your body's natural defenses and potentially even detract from the effectiveness of certain vaccines, according to the Sleep Foundation. If you're like many folks during the pandemic, you might reach for a glass of wine or even melatonin to spur sleep, but neither are perfect. Leaning toward alcohol dependency could have dangerous lasting effects, and experts note that melatonin isn't necessarily for everyone. So is there an alternative sleep supplement that might be more optimal? Well, possibly. Enter edibles. What are edibles? Well, the term edible might draw up an image of a college party with kids sharing a pan of pot brownies. An edible is simply an ingestible item, be it a gummy, capsule, tincture, or other food product, containing one or more cannabinoids with the intent of providing a therapeutic dose to help whatever's ailing you, i.e. stress, pain, insomnia. Those cannabinoids, which are the compounds found in a cannabis plant, include CBD, THC, or CBN. And here's a quick breakdown of those. CBD is short for cannabinoid, and it is a compound known for alleviating anxiety and inflammation without getting you high. THC, short for tetrahydrocannabinol, is notoriously known for the intoxicating psychoactive compound, the one that gets you high, and has been shown to reduce chronic pain. CBN, short for cannabinol. So I just have to say that again. CBD is cannabidiol. Cannabinol. Hamana. Cannabin. Yeah, that. And then CBN is cannabinol. I can say that one. The more complicated is CBD. All right. The lesser study studied the compound of 3. Stems from the lesser studied compound of the 3, stems from THC, making it somewhat psychoactive but not as potent as THC. CBN is generally accepted to be one of the more sedating compounds, but consumers also find THC and CBD helpful for sleep, depending primarily on the ultimate cause of the insomnia, says Benjamin Kaplan, doctor and board-certified family medicine physician, a cannabis physician, and the founder of CED Clinic in Massachusetts. CBN is felt to be much less euphoric than THC. For this reason, it often appeals more broadly to people than THC, as well as that like THC, as well as those that don't. This weed makes me keep jumping ahead in sentences, and then I'm like reading the beginning and the end and the middle. So
it's pretty good.
Yeah, but it's just making my mind
gave you the snowball effect.
Yeah, it's making my mind wander. There are varying strains of each cannabis plant too, like indica and sativa. Historically, indica has been known as the more sedating variety, while sativa has the reputation for being more energizing. That said, when it comes to edibles, the two strains don't really factor much into effectiveness, says Stacy Woodcock, doctor of pharmacy and dispensary manager with Cureleaf. What's more predictive of your experience is which cannabinoid, THC, CBD, or CBN, is in what you're consuming. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Right? So can edibles help me sleep? Well, the short answer, it depends on who you're asking. Dr. Kaplan, for one, is a major fan of cannabis when it comes to addressing his patients' sleep ailments. I have watched low-dose edibles help tens of thousands of patients discover restful sleep that most of our common prescriptions couldn't achieve, and without unpleasant side effects. Smita Patel, a physician in neurology, sleep medicine, and integrative medicine, echoes that sentiment. Research on cannabis and sleeping disorders suggests that CBD may have therapeutic potential for insomnia, and that THC may decrease the time it takes to fall asleep when you first go to bed. In one 2019 study, for example, participants with anxiety or sleep disorders were administered 25 to 175 milligrams of CBD per day. Roughly a month later, nearly 70% of participants reported improved sleep quality, while 80% said their anxiety had decreased overall.
Damn, that's even better.
Yeah. In case you didn't know, your body actually has a system in place to receive cannabinoids called your endocannabinoid system.
Hell yeah.
The system is basically part of your nervous system that contains, whether you ingest cannabis or not, molecules called endocannabinoids.
I believe they're midichlorians, but that's just me.
Okay. Receptors.
Star Wars reference. Sorry,
Jeez.
everybody. I'm a nerd.
Okay, I'm going to start that over. This system is basically part of your nervous system that contains, whether you ingest cannabis or not, molecules called endocannabinoids, receptors, and enzymes. These three components work together to aid your body in a trove of processes, from stress relief to pain reduction to conveniently improved sleep. The human body has an endocannabinoid system, which works to provide an overall sense of well-being, including quality sleep, says Elizabeth Ardillo, doctor of pharmacy and director of medical education at Green Thumb Industries. We have found that ingesting cannabis can help with sleep by working with receptors in the endocannabinoid system to provide a reduced sensation of pain, provide stress support, and ease restlessness. Of course, not all data on cannabis and sleep is positive. A literature review from 2017 suggests that repeated THC might hinder sleep in the long term, and that CBD could even act as a stimulant and keep you awake in some cases. Dr. Kaplan notes that it's important to take these types of studies with a grain of salt. The data on cannabis and its effects on sleep, like much of the existing data about cannabis, must be read with a critical eye, warns Dr. Kaplan. It comes with the baggage of decades-long systematic anti-cannabis agenda and a historical heap of studies that were biased against positive effects. That's crucial right there.
Yeah,
like
that's big.
Read the new, upcoming, recent reports, not the old stuff, because the old stuff had an underlying agenda.
Yeah,
to tell you that cannabis was going to kill you.
That's like the whole article. That's
right
the
there.
one point right there. Everyone needs to take in.
So, how to use edibles for better sleep? Should you consider popping an edible prior to bedtime? Well, first off, if you have a liver condition, it's best to stay away. Anyone consuming cannabis with liver concerns should consult an expert, as all cannabinoids are processed in the liver, says Dr. Kaplan.
Oh, through edible.
Yes,
right?
edibles.
Edibles. Okay, not through vapor or anything like that.
Beyond that caveat, however, the experts interviewed say that there's generally no harm in giving edibles a try for a night or two to see how they affect your sleep. However, it's always best to chat with your doctor prior to trying any new supplement, and of course refrain from operating any heavy. I feel like I'm reading a warning label.
Yeah.
It's a up, you know that stuff. While there's no official medical database of doctors prescribing cannabis, you can use online tools like Leafly's Find a Doctor. And here are a few tips for using edibles to sleep in the right way. Number one, pick the right product. There's tons of edible options. Dr. Kaplan says go for, he's a fan, particularly of oil-based products. So he goes on to say that the oils, like chocolate, coconut oil, those kind of things, a more dense, rich item is going to activate faster. While each person is different, edibles and THC and CBN can offer an uninterrupted night's sleep without the groggy feeling that other medications can produce.
Hell yeah, I agree with that 100%.
And then we've got prepare yourself to take it. You want to take it, let's see, pick something that you could pair with food or that the edible itself is oil-based, set a timer. It's best to prepare for an edible. The delayed onset is the most common trap for novice consumers. Why? Because edibles can take upwards of 60 minutes or longer to take effect, as opposed to cannabis that's inhaled, which kicks in within a few minutes. The other foods you can eat along with or just before eating an edible can also affect that timeline. If you had a carb-heavy meal with little fat, expect your edible to take longer to sink in and have a shorter effect. With a fat or oil-rich meal, the edible will likely kick in sooner and have a longer-lasting effect. Regardless of the meal type, just allot a solid 30 to 60-minute period prior to bed before popping your edible in. Hydration, it's not really a big deal. This Dr. Kaplan said, just drink water. It's good for you,
it's
right?
Great.
But not saying that cannabis will affect your hydration levels.
No.
And then
makes me drink a lot of water. That's why I love it.
Yeah.
I love cannabis for that reason.
Right. And then the biggest thing is watch your dose. When it comes to edibles, a little goes a long way. Many newcomers to edibles make the mistake of taking a larger dose than their body may need, and the extra THC can feel like an unwelcome and long-lasting roller coaster ride. So his advice, be patient. All too often, consumers forget that there is a long delay before edibles kick in. Don't take more, basically. While it won't give you the same effect as a hangover if you overconsume, you should always make sure that you have 6 to 10 hours after having an edible, because that's how long they may stay active in your system. Everyone's experience can be different. So if you're trying your first edible, do it on an evening that you don't have to be up and out first thing the next morning. She talks about like slow dosing, like 2 to 3 milligrams. Yeah. And then if after a night or two of trying 2 to 3 milligrams, it's not really doing much, then you can bump it up to 5 or 10 milligrams. And if you truly don't feel anything, no matter how much you take, oddly enough, there exists a cohort of people who, no matter what the dose they consume, seem to not ever feel the effect of edibles.
Yeah,
even though they may easily feel the effect of a low dose inhale.
Yeah, I've talked to people that edibles don't affect them at all.
Yeah,
it's like crazy. I'm like, what? That sucks. It sucks to be you.
Another one, scan the label. Dr. Kaplan says there's countless options again, but when choosing your product, be sure to look for the label saying COA, which is the certificate of analysis, and that just helps you know that it was lab tested and it won't contain harmful toxins. Don't rely on edibles nightly. Basically, you'll build up your tolerance. So this doctor is suggesting that you use them in intermittent patterns. Use it for a little bit, stop using it, go back and forth. So that's
tolerance break, basically, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, microdosing is a big thing, especially people starting out. Talk to people all the time. Oh, I love the 5s. I love the 10s. Unless you're in Oklahoma, you like 550s to 1000s.
Yeah, right.
So we love edibles. Mrs. Weedman has been doing this practice thing for a while to see the time, and she's got it down. So trial, don't just start low and go slow.
But I will tell you, it is trial and error, because, yeah, I have it down pat, but like that one doctor was suggesting, when you eat it with a oil-heavy meal versus a bunch of carbs, you could have the same edible 2 nights in a row and have completely different effects.
True, 100%.
Right?
Yeah, we've had that before many times.
Yeah.
I always wondered why cannabis has a different color, so I looked it up. Once you start to get involved with cannabis, you start to learn there's much more to the plant than smoking and getting baked. Experienced users know what they like and know how to get different results with the plant depending on different factors, like choosing strains, terpenes, and knowing what works with their bodies. All colors of the rainbow, almost. While cannabis is primarily green, there are many different shades ranging from lime-colored buds to purple, bright ones. Where do those come from? Why is there so much variety? Plants have thousands of compounds that affect their shape and color. Temperature, time of harvest, and other factors are being influences on the plant's color. Most plants are green due to the chlorophyll, the main compound responsible for absorbing sunlight and completing the photosynthesis process. The cannabis plant falls under the spectrum. Strains that have darker shades, such as purple, red, blues, pinks, are generally high in anthocyanins, a compound that appears once the plant matures. These types of plants are more likely to have a stronger smell and are also very eye-catching, which is why they're so popular, particularly the purple ones. Colors like orange and yellow are produced by carotenoids, which are present in vegetables like squash, sweet potatoes, and pumpkins. That squash I cooked tonight was delicious, too.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, man, it was good. These chemicals tend to appear in the plants that grew in alkaline soils. Do different colors have different effects? While the colors in cannabis make for more attractive plants on a visual level, perhaps influence the way in which they smell or feel, the plant effects aren't generally altered. When consumed, these different colors may give your body some perks, like vitamins, that these chemicals are known for, maybe even increasing cannabis entourage effect. So that was something I was looking up because I grew some purple weed one time, and I just want to know why, what the difference is. So what is the biggest thing we do about this podcast? What's like our top 3 things?
Well, we want to stop the stigma.
Right. So
we want to educate.
Yes.
And
we want to free the plant.
Free the plant.
Free the plant.
I should know those.
That's our motto. Yeah, that's basically
write that down.
What do they call that? What do they call it when it's like your mantra, your what you stand for? That's what we do. That's
our motto.
Yeah, our motto. So
our mission statement.
Our mission statement. Thank you.
That's not
our
really
mission.
A statement, though.
That's my mission statement.
Okay.
So, so what are some of the lessons that you read about on stopping the stigma?
Do you want me to talk about the article?
Yeah.
Is that a trick question?
No.
I'm really high.
Really?
Are you just? But
no, I want you to talk about the article.
You just want me to talk about the article?
Sure. Unless you got something to say. Soapbox
I got
time?
I got 3 lessons. No, I'm good.
All right.
Yeah. Moving on to my next article on how do we minimize the stigma around cannabis. Well, let's start with these 3 lessons. Hey, Mr. Weedman, you asked me what I learned.
That's it.
You want to know?
I want to know.
Here we go. Running a cannabis business means you are an ambassador to an emerging industry. This article is kind of set as like a journalist writing to people in the business. So I'm going to try to paraphrase and make it sensible for everybody. But running a cannabis business means you are an ambassador to an emerging industry. Because the cannabis industry is so new, how you conduct business in the early days can make a lasting impression on how the public view the industry at large. As the leader of a cannabis, CBD, and hemp PR firm, I believe business leaders have a responsibility to combat the stigma against cannabis and the oppressive history that goes along with it. 100 years ago, racism against Mexican immigrants influenced a linguistic shift toward using marijuana to refer to cannabis. For decades, the United States government and its allies demonized cannabis through a negative association with Mexican immigrants. This antagonism still lingers today as Black and brown immigrants from Latin America are regularly targeted at the border and throughout our country. This is just one of the most oppressive stereotypes the war on drugs created against marginalized people.
Harriet Asslinger.
Other industry leaders, and I know drug history well, and we seek to undo the harms caused by drug policy over the last century. To be a responsible industry leader is to fight against outdated stigma and oppressive stereotypes within the cannabis community. Over the years, I have learned 3 hard lessons about combating the stigma around the plant. Here they are. So again, this is not me. This is not my opinion. This is the journalist saying this is what he has learned, or she. Lesson 1, engage in product safety and transparency. Last May, California-based cannabis brand THC Living launched a new product called Cannabumps. We've talked about this before. The product was advertised as a snortable white powdered cannabis concentrate. The product announcement sparked controversy within the cannabis community because it resembled cocaine. The controversy wasn't unique. The buzz surrounding Cannabumps brought to life the outdated and pre-existing stigmas within the industry. As a community, we championed cannabis as superior to other substances for far too long. This dull dialogue perpetuated what the war on drugs was designed to do: harness control and supremacy over others. Cannabis users are not superior drug consumers, contrary to the industry climate. Likewise, there isn't a superior consumption method of cannabis, just as there isn't any special way to consume any mood-altering psychoactive substance. What ultimately tarnished THC's Living's reputation was its failure to practice brand transparency and product safety. Every 10 milligram dose contained 2 milligrams of THC, but the company never revealed the rest of the product's ingredients. We're still unsure of what compounds made up cannabis. Cannabis brands should have used a lesson like this in product safety and brand transparency. Product ingredients should never be a mystery. Every batch of products on the market must be lab tested. All products should have ingredients listed on packaging, online product listings, etc. All products should also include safety information such as guidance on how to consume them. This is a matter of harm reduction. While we assume an inherent risk when consuming cannabis or any other substance, we can reduce the risk by providing instructions for consumption and any health warnings or safety disclaimers. Brand and product information should also be readily available to the media. Shortly following the downfall of cannabis, there was a flurry of media coverage centered around product criticism without any response from the parent company, THC Living. This is a poor cannabis public relations move. Given the right media team, the garnered negative press attention could have presented a real opportunity to demystify their product and clear the air around cannabis' intended use and target consumer. Yeah, they really kind of missed the boat on that one.
Oh, yeah, they did.
They just kind of hid.
Yep.
Like, okay, that's not going to work. Lesson 2, avoid stereotypes. In 2019, Ignite Cannabis Company made headlines for its East Hollywood billboards that featured overly sexualized, semi-nude women with lackluster puns like nice grass. This was unsurprising for a company run by Instagram celebrity Dan Bilzerian, whose feed is full of him posing with models. The brand's Instagram account mirrors similar content. While Ignite partnered with WeedMD, a company half employed by women vocal about gender equity, women and their allies in the industry were outraged on social media. Rather than seizing the opportunity to disrupt gender norms, Ignite chose to align itself with sexism and patriarchy. These outdated gender norms also don't represent marginalized genders in the cannabis industry. According to a 2019 MJ Biz Daily report, a third of cannabis industry executives are women. While there are still many opportunities to combat sexism in the cannabis industry, we can set cultural norms in this market. If we're prioritizing social equity, our advertising must not resort to oppressive, outdated stereotypes. Instead, brand and market cannabis according to the drug law reform movement values. Positive social change should be a significant aspect of how you operate and advertise your business. The tone of our brand messaging can change the societies in which cannabis enterprises operate in real, tangible ways. And lastly, we've got lesson number 3. Have conversations about the drug war and advocate for social equity across the board. Social equity begins close to home, specifically in how companies operate their businesses. Through marketing and advertising, though marketing and advertising are critical to how a brand is perceived, the employees are living testimonies to the climate of the work environment. These relationships can make or break a reputation as an industry leader. Known for its luxurious dispensary storefronts, MedMen Enterprises is also known for its toxic work environment. According to a 2019 lawsuit brought on by ex-CFO James Parker. Parker attributed the hostile environment to excess personal spending by co-founders and a racist, homophobic, and sexist culture. Rolling Stone reports MedMen allegedly paid for chauffeured Escalades, a custom $160,000 Tesla SUV, chartered jets, safe rooms for its founders, and even a $300,000 conference table. One of the founders even brought their marriage counselor on staff as a life coach. These claims have given the founders a canna bro reputation that has even been satirized on South Park. Learning from MedMen's shortcomings in leadership, companies should advocate for equity and fairness among their staff and clients. As a socially responsible leader, it's crucial for them to partner and work alongside other businesses that share organizational values of the social equity. Too often, they forget that they have the power to be selective and set their own examples in this emerging marketplace. The legal U.S. cannabis market is less than 10 years old. For decades, we lived under cannabis prohibition, and this country now grapples with the impact the drug war continues to make. There are social movements about other types of drug consumers, including the fight for safe consumption sites and the decriminalization of all drugs. It's never too late to take a stance and become more politically involved in harm reduction advocacy. When you start up or run a cannabis company, you're representing the industry and the movement that brought it to the economic forefront of the future. Learn from the mishaps of those above to better your leadership efforts in driving an equitable, modern cannabis business.
This was a really good article when I read it and sent it over to you. It was written by Evan Neeson, Entrepreneur Leadership Network VIP, owner and founder of Neeson Company, Cannabis PR and Marketing.
Cool.
On July 8th.
What platform? Where was that?
He wrote this for Green Entrepreneur.
Cool.
It's a really good website. They write a lot of good articles and stuff.
I think he made a lot of valid points.
Yeah.
And again, this is kind of geared towards people that are working in the field or have companies in the field. But he's talking really about having to listen to society.
Yeah.
You know, it's a new industry.
Yeah.
So don't build it the wrong way.
Yeah, it was a pretty good article, especially when you're trying to stomp the stigma and free the plant and do a lot of things and make it social equity, and everybody should have a piece of it, not just the rich people, billionaires getting in. I mean, Snoop just said something, an article I read that he just wrote, just saying that, more and more artists and more athletes and more movie stars are getting in the industry also, but he also said the black community should be being major focused on it because they've been in the game forever, and so, I mean, I thought it was good. Travis Scott to launch Cactus Farms cannabis line, another hip-hop artist getting in the game, which is great. I think it's awesome. I like his music. So, also, it was Cheech Marin's birthday the other day, too. I think he turned like 76 or 77 or something, man.
Happy
Still
birthday,
going.
Cheech.
Yeah. Willie Nelson, we talk about him a bunch on this show. We like him. Just wrote a book, and this one part of the book was called Dear Cannabis, Letter by Willie Nelson. Dear Cannabis, what can I say? You saved me, and we both know it. I met you way back in 1954 when a fellow Fort Worth musician asked if I wanted to blow some tea. I knew he meant marijuana, but I'd heard stories about what it might do to me, so I turned you down. But my pal gave me a slender joint and told me to smoke it sometime. I gave you a try, but I smoked you like a cigarette and didn't hold you in my lungs. It took a few times for me to figure it out, but when I did, I had a feeling we'd eventually be friends. Lots of folks said we were doing wrong, but I know love when I see it, and I don't believe the seeds and flowers that were given to us from a creator are any more illegal than the hops that are used to make beer or grapes that make wine. We have quite a run, and they like to make jokes about me and you. They say we tour the country in a cannabis. People say when you smoke pot, you get high, but when you smoke Willie's pot, you get Willie high. An astronaut came on the bus, and we were talking and laughing. He said I was the only person he'd met that'd be higher than him. My pals write songs about getting high, too. Toby Keith sings, I'll never smoke weed with Willie again. And if we're on the same bill, he might be smoking weed with me again right after the show. Comedians make jokes about you and short-term memory, but I can't remember any of them. I must be high. If I let a few thoughts slip my mind, the good news is that's the first ones. I let go of our negative thoughts, and I've always said, don't think no negative thoughts. Cannabis, I suspect you were a little heartbroken when word went around that we broke up, but I think you knew, just like his wife Annie and me, you and I are a couple to the end. Sometimes people ask me how much of you I've smoked, but there's no answer. We've been pals so long, we're just smoking each other, getting each other high, and opening ourselves to the possibilities of now. I finally go around writing a love song about the two of us. I love to sing it, and the audience loves to sing it with me. So everyone all together, roll me up and smoke me when I die. High on the hill, Willie. I got the chills. Hey, everybody, we're going to have one last shout out. Rest in peace, Biz Marquee. Oh, baby, you
got what I need.
But you say he's just a friend. You say he's just a friend. Oh, baby, you got what I need. Hey, everybody, peace, love, and happiness out there to all of you. Peace be with you all. Check us out on WeedMan420 Chronicles on Insta, WeedMan420 Pod on Twitter. Send us an email, WeedMan420Chronicles@gmail.com. Appreciate you all. As Paulie always says, smoke smart, puff, puffing away.
Puff, puff, pass.